Far out in the uncharted backwaters of the unfashionable end of the western spiral arm of the galaxy lies a small, unregarded yellow sun. Orbiting this at a distance of roughly 92 million miles is an utterly insignificant little blue-green planet whose ape-descended life forms are so amazingly primitive that two of them still think doing a podcast called Digital Watches are a pretty neat idea is a pretty neat idea. These podcasters have, or rather had, a problem, which was this. Actually, this is the solution.
Two men, two amazingly primitive men, thought this was a pretty neat idea. They were dreamers, thinkers, speculative philosophers, or as their wives would have it, idiots.
Hey, Brian, what's this?
Well, Jeff, this is Doctor Who.
Okay.
As written by Douglas Adams.
Really?
In a version that they call Shada.
Shada. Shada!
Shada. Yeah, I haven't quite figured out why that's the name, but this is really strange, Jeff. I mean, I know quite a bit about Doctor Who, just not nearly as much as you do, obviously, but I found this to be quite the interesting challenge.
Okay. Well, just for the record, I loved every minute of this.
Oh, do you?
Yes.
Oh, that's fantastic. That's fantastic. I mean, just to give some kind of an idea of why I thought it was different, for me anyway. I mean, normally watching a videotape or video would be no big deal, right?
Right.
Except, I think we may have discussed this a little bit in a previous podcast. This is a unique video.
Right.
Because it is pieced together from actual footage that was taken for the TV show.
Correct.
And additional pieces that were animated in between to fluff out, fill out, and finish out the story.
Right.
In its totality, it's a little over 2 hours, right?
Yes.
In the one version that we were tasked to watch.
Tasked?
What was the year that was created? Do you remember?
You were punished.
Well, I didn't feel like I was punished. There was some painful bits in it for me, and I'm sure we'll go over it as we go through. But what was the year that they said that this was compiled?
All right, so the brief history of Shada is that they were filming Shada for a regular release in January and February of 1980. Okay. It was going to be a 6-part, half-hour episode serial, very typical of what Doctor Who did back then.
Mm-hmm.
But there was a strike.
Right.
And by the time the strike was over, they couldn't finish what they did. So they did all of the on-location scenes out and about around Cambridge, but they didn't do most of the studio scenes. Because of the strike, too many different shows all needed studio space at the same time, and Doctor Who was very low on the totem pole, so they got bumped and they just scrapped that episode.
Right. That was one of the things that I found interesting. Just as an aside, I have to say, it's funny what we went through to get this version. You contacted the library, right?
Yes, I got it through the library.
Right. And I actually found it on Amazon and bought a DVD, which my wife laughed at me terribly about.
Okay.
Well, here we had been discussing in previous discussions between my wife and myself. We have been moving into our new place for close to a year now.
Right.
And over at our other house, I think we have a collection of, I want to say there's at least 200 DVDs.
Right.
Now, some of them I'm going to consider collector's items, but most of them are in the general watch them once, throw them away field.
Right.
But we haven't been able to figure out how to get rid of them. So we've had discussions for months on what are we going to do with these DVDs. And when this DVD showed up in the mail, my wife was like, what?
Yeah, right.
What are you thinking?
Just on a side note of a side note, save them until I come out there, because anything that you put up for grabs, let me go through and take what I want.
Oh, you got it. You got it. That's at the moment, they're not moving. They're perfectly content where they are.
Right. Well, but anything you would consider, I want to keep this one, take that one out, because it's obviously one that I'm going to look and say, I want that one. And then you're going to say, no, you can't have that one.
Exactly. But what I did get is I got a copy of the DVD from Amazon. And I'm not sure whether you got the exact same thing that I got, but in my DVD, there's actually 2 DVDs.
Yep.
Inside of it has the version that we were tasked to watch for this podcast.
Correct.
On top of it, on the first DVD, there's a bunch of different special features.
Right.
And then on the second DVD, there is the webcast.
Right.
Animated series that came out, seems to have been produced before the version that we were tasked to watch, which was the pieced together BBC CI, is it? Version that puts together the live action, the actual videotape that was taken, we call videotape, but it was actually filmed back at the time.
Right.
And then they put together the animated sections to create an entire show.
Yes.
And on that second DVD, there was also some special features, which I found fascinating. So this is definitely one of the cases where, for me, the special features on the DVD were more interesting than what I was watching or tasked to watch. But we're here to talk about the show, or series of shows that were intended to be called Shada.
Right. First, because they were in the middle of filming when the strike happened and they didn't finish it, there is a script. So, in 1992, they did a VHS reconstruction with Tom Baker doing an introduction, and then he also filled in the missing scenes via a narrative description. Mm-hmm. So they played all of the footage that they had, and anytime they came to a break where they didn't have the footage, Tom Baker would explain what was happening. In 2003, Big Finish did their own remake.
Right.
However, they didn't use Tom Baker as the doctor. They used the Dr. Paul McGann, who was the 7th Doctor, I think. I'd have to look it up. So there was, anyway, Paul McGann. He basically did one movie, and he didn't do any television episodes.
Right. Okay.
But Big Finish does a lot of other audio programs that he is a part of. So they used him and the actress who played Romana, and they redid the script a little bit to put them in the show rather than Tom Baker and Romana.
Right.
And it was kind of clever how they did that, and I think I'm going to talk about that a little bit later. And that is a 100% animated show.
Right.
They didn't use any live footage because they changed doctors. Then in 2017, what we watched, they filled in using the script and using the original actors. They animated the missing scenes.
Right.
So it's pretty seamless. It's a little bit of a difference. And I'll talk a little bit about the only thing that really bothered me later.
But I do have a question for you. Since you were doing some of the history stuff, I'm a little confused, but maybe it's clearer when you just described that. In the totally animated series by Big Finish,
yes,
they have it set up as 6 episodes.
Correct. The original was 6 episodes.
Okay, so the original that we watched in one long run was intended to be 6 different pieces.
Yes.
Is that right?
Correct.
Oh, okay. Okay. Well, that wasn't really clear in the viewing, but...
Well, the way they would do it is that as the scene goes on, and if you've watched enough Doctor Who, you can kind of tell where it's going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
One of the characters will get themselves into a bad position, and they end the episode. And the beginning of the next episode starts with a replay of the last scene that gets you to where they ended, and then it just goes on.
Right, right. So it's much more like a soap opera type of an approach to it, or even the old Western cliffhangers. Tune in next week of the radio shows, tune in next week for what happens to our daring duo.
Right, exactly. But because it's a continuous scene that they intentionally cut, it's a continuous scene. So they don't have to do any cuts, and it just goes on for the full 2 hours and 15 minutes or whatever it is.
Right. And the other thing I wondered about, and I think you alluded to the answer, so I'll give you the opportunity to confirm it or deny it, is the one that we watched, the 2017 version. You said that they went back to the original script. So is that the original script version you would closest to, or?
Yes. Yes.
Okay.
That is as close to the original script as you can get.
Okay. All right. Well, that was an unfortunate answer, but we'll discuss that later.
Okay. One last little piece is after the production was halted by the strike, Adams expressed a low opinion of the script, and he was content to let it remain obscure, and he kept turning down offers to adapt the story in various forms. He once claimed that when he had signed the contract allowing the script's 1992 release, where Tom Baker did the introduction and filling in, it had been amongst a pile of papers sent over by his agent, and that he was unaware of what he was agreeing to.
Sign here.
Yes. So as I mentioned, Tom Baker does an introduction for the 1992 release, and in it, he's walking around a museum full of these characters of his supervillains, like the Daleks and the Cybermen, and he's walking around Giant Robot and he's pointing them out, and then he sees a Krarg. And at this point, nobody who has ever watched Doctor Who knows what a Krarg is. And that's when he's like, a Krarg? And so that's how he leads in to this show, Shada, because this is where the Krarg was released.
Right.
I want to play a portion of the introduction because I like what he says about Douglas Adams in it.
The untransmitted story. Why wasn't it transmitted? No. Of course we didn't finish it. Starring Dennis Carey and Christopher Neame, written by Douglas Adams. I thought it was a very good script. And there was an invisible spaceship. Douglas said anyone can design a visible spaceship, but to design an invisible spaceship, that needs imagination. I think he said that, or did he say? I think he said genius. Yes, he said genius. Poor old Douglas. I wonder what became of him.
So now we can talk about what we watched. This starts out on a spacecraft, not the invisible one, and it has 6 people aboard. They are sitting in a circle, and they appear to be in stasis, with their backs to the center around a sphere. One of them wakes up and goes and adjusts some controls with a timer that counts down in Roman numerals. I thought that was hysterical.
Yes,
watching,
that was rather
funny. Roman numerals ticking down. So he puts on a recorded message about the ship being in quarantine and everybody to stay away. And he takes the sphere that was in the middle of everybody and he leaves on a shuttle as the remaining crew wake up and they start wandering aimlessly. In the 2003 completely animated version, they rewrote the whole beginning for the webcast because they needed to introduce why he, not Tom Baker, was the one that was going to visit Professor Chronotis. And if I remember correctly, and if I understood what they were saying, it was something like he forgot. In this original one, there's this time issue of when did Chronotis send the message about the book and when did they actually get there and how much time has passed. So they used that glitch to say, oh, let's go, because there was this big time thing. So it was kind of interesting.
Right, and I didn't know if you want to intersperse these that way or talk about them as two separate entities, but...
I'm going to intersperse.
Okay, well, since you're going to intersperse, let me interject. I found the animated version by Big Finish to be much more understandable and concise, and the story is much more under control. It's more like what I would have expected had I been watching Doctor Who. And the introduction itself is, in the animated version, is a pivotal piece to that understanding. Now, granted, I had already watched the original version, the one we were talking about today, so I did have an idea what was going on. But because when I started watching that, the animated version by Big Finish, I really enjoyed it considerably more than I enjoyed the BBC recompiled images.
I don't want to say I 100% agree, but I do agree in a way for a couple of reasons. One, I had the same kind of feeling, but I wasn't sure if the Big Finish animated version was actually better or if I just understood it better because it was the third time I was watching the same show.
Right, and that's a good observation because I kind of felt the same way, but I did analyze it a little bit more in my mind, and I really feel like the Big Finish version is a better version of the story. And that's why I asked you earlier in the introduction part we were talking about whether or not the version we were watching, the 2013 version, was closer to the script.
And I'm not going to defend the original script, but Big Finish has the advantage of watching the original or using the original script and going, like you said, this piece needs a little more clarification.
Right.
So they did clarification.
Yes. And I really did appreciate that. So
yes, so did I.
Yeah, like you say, hindsight's 20/20, I guess. So they did it again, and they did it a little better.
Yes. Yeah, they were able to fix some things that were a little muddy. So after the spaceship, then they cut to Cambridge. And we see a man on a bicycle, and he is riding into a college campus.
Right.
We then cut to an old man in his library, which contains a blue police box. The man on the bike is Chris Parsons, and he arrives.
Right.
And he met Professor Chronotis at a faculty party a few weeks ago. Again, sounds familiar.
Yep. Professor Chronotis certainly does.
Yes. And meeting at a party of a bunch of...
Academics,
yes. And Chris wants to borrow some books on carbon dating, which he's taking himself. And there are jokes about boring academic parties, talking without listening, age, memory, time. So all the same type of things that we've heard Chronotis say in Dirk Gently. He's the exact same character here.
Right.
There was something that I did like, and I don't remember if it was in the animated version or if you even noticed it in this first version.
Okay.
Chronotis is making tea off camera in the kitchen, and Chris Parsons is standing looking for his books on carbon dating. And Professor Chronotis, before he goes to get tea, points down and he says, "They're down on the end, third shelf." And Chris goes down to the end on the third shelf and he takes off a book. And then he says, "Oh, no, it's the second shelf." And then he goes and he takes books off the second shelf. The book on the third shelf is the whole book this series is revolving around. So because Professor Chronotis said the third shelf, he grabbed a book from the third shelf. Even though it had nothing to do with carbon dating. Right. He just decided he was going to take a book off that third shelf. But did you notice the change?
No, I didn't.
And I don't remember seeing that in the animated version because I thought that was a pretty interesting, not blaming or pointing fingers at it's your fault, but he did misspeak and he did say third shelf, and that's where he took the important book.
Right.
And then he changed his mind.
Yep.
And then Chris took others.
Yes.
Believe me, that's so not really an important thing, but it was just something that I enjoyed seeing.
Yes.
Especially like when I was watching it the second time. Because I watch it through just to watch it, and then I have to watch it to take all my notes.
Right.
So I'm watching, I kind of see that kind of thing.
Yes. That was definitely interesting and definitely moved the plot forward when he pulled it off. He pulled it off.
Okay, there we go.
Oh, boy.
So then we finally get to meet the Doctor and Romana. And they are on a punt on a river, and the Doctor is doing the polling. And they are discussing Earth physics and scientists until the Doctor loses his pole.
Mm-hmm.
As they go under a bridge, they think they hear these weird voices. They decide to go see if the professor is back in his room, and we see that they are being observed by Skagra, who is the guy from the original ship,
Right.
who is now inconspicuously dressed in a long silver cape and a great big hat.
Yeah. So, two observations. One for the podcast. And one just note, because that's the kind of guy I am. A punt is actually the pole itself.
The punt is the boat.
But the punt is referred to as a pole, yes. Punting means to use the pole to push the boat.
But when I looked it up, it said a punt is a small, square-nosed boat that is used on canals with a pole.
Mm-hmm. That's interesting. Anyway, I didn't look it up, so I'm glad you did.
Yeah.
Well, okay. Anyway.
I wanted to make sure I knew what they were saying.
Right. Well,
and that the spelling was what I thought.
They referred to punting, which, as I understood it, meant the action of pushing a boat with a pole. I didn't know that the boat itself was referred to as a punt.
Yes.
Interesting.
And what's your note?
And that was the one of the big things that I thought was really silly and ridiculous is that Skagra is represented in all of the BBC filming that they did, the outdoor. He's wearing this white cape that runs clearly down to his, below his knees and his back, and his ridiculous white hat with silver trim. And he's walking through the streets of 1970s London as if nobody would think him odd and say, "What the hell's the matter with you, bud?"
Right.
So, yeah, there's no attempt at disguising that he doesn't belong here.
Not at first.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. But why they bothered at the second time he goes out there, he changes his clothes. I couldn't figure that out. That didn't make any sense, but
okay.
That was clearly one of the aspects of the differences between the Big Finish version, too, is that he immediately references the fact that he's going to be walking around outside and does this outfit look better than the other one I had on?
Right. So we get to our first bit of animation, and it is Chris Parsons going back to his lab after leaving Professor Chronotis' place.
Mm-hmm.
And the animated version of him is more steady on the bike than he is in the real life version.
Yep.
And that was confirmed by the documentary.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Oh my gosh, that's funny.
So he's looking at one of the books that he took, and he cannot read it. And as he flips through the book forwards, the clock behind him goes forward. Mm-hmm. And as he flips the book backwards, the clock behind him goes backwards. So we know that this is some weird time book that has got some powers.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Interesting.
The Doctor and Romana arrive at Professor Chronotis' house, and we learn that he is a retired Time Lord and has been at the college for 300 years. The Doctor says he was sent for, but the Professor does not remember sending for him. He is also not allowed to have a TARDIS. The Professor remembers why he called the Doctor all of a sudden, and it was about a book he accidentally took from Gallifrey.
Yep.
So again, we go back to Chris's lab, and this part is animated, and he's trying to do tests on the book, and he x-rays it, and the x-ray machine explodes. So Chris Parsons calls a colleague to look at this strange book with him. So Skagra from the spacecraft is trying to find Professor Chronotis. He catches a ride with a gentleman and seems to take control of the car. Voices are now heard by the professor, the doctor, and Romana, and Skagra is going back to his shuttle, which is invisible in a nearby field.
Right. And I laugh because there's two things that I wrote notes in about the animated version, Big Finish's version, and one of them here is the car. And I'm sure that you caught this. And
yes.
But you kindly didn't mention
I didn't.
The car is a Ford Prefect.
Yes, it is. Yes. And they make sure that is very prominent.
Mm-hmm.
That you cannot miss that.
In the animated version, they do indeed. But I don't think it is in the film version. It's just a regular sedan, I believe.
So back in the professor's library, the doctor and Romana are searching the shelves for the book with no luck.
Mm-hmm.
The professor confesses the book he took is called The Worshipful and Ancient Law of Gallifrey. It is a dangerous artifact. And here comes a very typical Douglas Adam line. And there's a few of these in here that just kind of made me laugh.
Yes.
The doctor is basically scolding the professor for taking the book. He is explaining that the book was put in the archive for safety because they do not even know what the book is capable of. The professor's response was something like, then there's not a chance of anyone else understanding it, is there? So how can the book be a danger if it's gone? Because if the Time Lords don't understand it, no Earthling is going to understand it.
That's right.
Back on the shuttle, Skagra is using his computer to research the doctor. He goes to find the professor, and he asks a porter if the professor is available. While continuing to look for the book, the doctor and Romana are talking about Sally Avon, a stylish criminal that was a boyhood hero of the doctor's. In their discussion, they both discover they cannot remember the name of the prison he is in. The professor remembers he had a student over who borrowed a book, but cannot remember the student's name. And they get to do the Civ joke.
Yes.
At the lab, Chris Parsons has his colleague, Claire Keatley, over to look at the book. The professor eventually remembers Chris Parsons when they get to the Y's, because they were going through the alphabet trying to get him to prompt his memory. And he remembered, Y, young Parsons, yes. Chris Parsons, he's the guy that has my book.
Right, exactly. And it's funny, because I keep thinking, why would they choose Parsons? And I can't get the image of Alan Parsons Project out of my head, you know, because it's about the same time contemporarily, you know.
Right.
So it makes me think that. The other thing that kind of makes me curious, and I don't know why they chose to do this, but why is Chris's lab so far across London?
Cambridge.
You know, they make it sound like it's a lab associated with the college.
It's Cambridge.
But it's, you know.
It's Cambridge, which is a series of different colleges. So he goes to one college. We did not say that it is pointed out in the animation, and I don't remember hearing it in the original, that it is St. Sed's.
Right. Yeah, I'm trying to remember if it's in the original. I don't recall that. Yeah.
But Chris Parsons does not go to St. Sed's. He goes to another college in Cambridge.
I see.
And Cambridge has got like 4 or 5 different colleges and universities all around. So that's, to me, why there's such a big distance.
Right.
Because he's not part of the same school.
Right. And then my other absolute favorite note that I made...
Okay.
Again, it's about the animated series, is when they do get to Chris's lab, not in the original series, but in the animated one, they show a picture of a vending machine, and it clearly says across the top of it, Nutrimat.
Okay, yes.
And a little later on, in a different scene, when he's talking with his colleague, you can see the subtitle on the machine says, "Share and enjoy."
And because I only watched the webcast once, I missed that. So thank you for pointing that out. I'm going to have to take a look.
It was one of my favorite little Easter eggs.
So basically, at the same time, Chris and Claire decide that Chris needs to talk to the professor again. The doctor thinks he needs to go talk to Chris. So they both leave their respective places and each on a bicycle almost run into each other as they're going to see each other.
Mm-hmm.
While the doctor is gone, the professor wants to make tea, but he ran out of milk. They do an expanded scene in the webcast from the original. Rather than having him go to the store, Romana goes into the TARDIS to get some.
Right. And her milk is only 32 years old, but fresh as the day it was made.
Yes, yes. So Skagra arrives at the professor's, and he is now wearing the clothes of the man from the car. And they spelled that out more in the webcast.
Right.
He is wearing the clothes from the man in the car, but they don't ever tell you that he intentionally did that. But this is one of the clarifications they did in the webcast, is to point out he changed, and that's why he took this guy's car. When he sees the professor, and the professor asked who he was, and Skagra replies, "My name does not concern you," in a very Slarty Bartfast type of delivery.
Absolutely.
Skagra uses the sphere from the ship to take part of the professor's mind. When Romana gets back, the professor is passed out on the floor. Chris Parsons arrives. K9 comes out of the TARDIS and diagnoses the professor as being in a severe state of having his mind removed. I can't remember the word he called, and I didn't write it down. Anyway, a collar of some sort is used on the professor to help save his mind. However, it does not work, but using his heartbeat, he is able to Morse code out a warning. So, Gallifreyan Morse? It would still be Morse? I don't know. They should have come up with another word, I think.
Yeah, there you go.
Anyway, his warning was, beware the sphere, beware Skagra, beware Shada. And the secret is in the... And then he dies before he can say book. Because everybody know he has to say book. Because that's what the whole show is about.
Yep.
Yes. Unless it was in the castle.
Oh, yes. I love it.
So the doctor is at the lab, and he has a conversation with Claire about the book. Again, something that was very Douglas Adams, and rather than trying to read it, I'm just going to play it. So here's the clip.
It had no detectable atomic structure.
Well, the book must have stored up vast amounts of subatomic energy and suddenly released it when the machine was activated. Does anything strike you about that?
What?
It's a very strange way for the book to behave.
I would have thought that was obvious.
Never underestimate the obvious.
But what does it tell us?
Nothing, obviously.
Well?
So obviously it was meant to tell us nothing, exactly the opposite function of a book. Therefore...
It isn't a book.
So Claire was doing carbon dating on the book, and the results for the carbon dating come in, and they discover that it is not 20,000 years old, but it is negative 20,000 years old. So time is running backwards on the book. The doctor takes the book and returns to the professors. He is confronted by Skagra, who tries to take his mind with the sphere. The doctor leads a chase through Cambridge and loses the book on the way. God, I hated that part. I could not believe that he did that. And then when I was watching this originally, in his ride through Cambridge trying to escape the fear, there is a group of a cappella singers singing Chattanooga Choo Choo for no apparent reason.
Oh, but that's the funny part. This is where watching the special features makes me excited.
Yes, absolutely.
So they do explain why there's an a cappella group singing Chattanooga Choo Choo in the background.
Was alcohol involved?
Well, it just happens to be that there was alcohol involved. I guess, I'm not sure. They say it was a couple of the guys that are in the production go to the bar. They're silently or slowly getting a little hammered. And they meet some college kids who find out that they are doing a TV show. College kids say, hey, we'd like to be involved. And they invite them to be involved with the shooting the next day. And the next day, this group of boys that you see singing in the background all show up. And kind of impromptu, they decide to let them sing their song. And they're going to add it into the show.
Right. Because when they showed up, they had forgotten the whole thing that they invited these people to be on the show.
Yeah, as you do when you get drunk.
And then the sad part about all of that is all of these college guys told everybody that they were going to be in a Doctor Who episode.
Right.
So they're all watching Doctor Who going, well, this one has nothing to do with Cambridge. Maybe it's the next one. Next week. This one doesn't have anything to do with Cambridge. And then they never were on TV.
Right.
Until now.
Exactly. Yeah, because it is discontinuous that they would do that. But once you mention the fact that it fits along the lines of the way that Doctor Who was written and the way Doctor Who was presented on TV, it makes more sense.
Yes. So the sphere is continuing after the Doctor, and all of a sudden he gets trapped by a fence. But he is rescued by Romana with the TARDIS, because when the TARDIS arrives, for some reason, the sphere just decides it's going to stop and not go after the Doctor. Mm-hmm. And then I laughed when his scarf gets caught in the door as they dematerialize.
Yeah, that was kind of funny.
So we go back to the professors, and the professor dematerializes while lying on the floor. The Doctor says he must have been on his last regeneration. The Doctor tasks K9 with locating the sphere when it becomes active again, and they retire to the TARDIS to wait. The sphere is out collecting more mines and gets the mind of a local man who is fishing. It's just going up from person to person, taking mines, and the guy just falls face first into the water. So.
Yep. That was kind of silly. I mean, this part of the story is kind of silly, but...
The TARDIS leaves from the professor's library to find the sphere just as Claire arrives. And the TARDIS rematerializes in a field, and the Doctor, Romana, Parsons watch the sphere disappear into the shuttle. They investigate. When K9 is asked what it is, he gives an answer that reminded me of Deep Thought talking about the Earth. And again, rather than trying to read it, I am just going to play a little clip of that piece.
What is it, K9?
A spacecraft, mistress, of very advanced design. Many of its functions are beyond my capacity to analyze.
So Skagra now has the book, and he is on his shuttle. He lowers the ramp so they can enter. As they enter, and they walk down a corridor, a cube appears, and everybody but the Doctor disappears. Skagra meets the Doctor and brings him into the shuttle. Again, there is a conversation that goes something like this. Who are you? That information will be no use to you. Then you might as well tell me. So Skagra gives the book to the Doctor and orders him to read it. And if you've listened to previous episodes, when there are very unpleasant things that we are forced to listen to, we are going to make you listen to them. So I am going to play the clip of the Doctor reading the book.
Mohora in Chaha Puho Mayaha Howard Davis da Bidian. I'm paraphrasing, of course.
Doctor,
No, this you'd like this bit. This is a good bit.
Skagra figures out that the book is written in code. Skagra believes the Doctor knows the code and uses the sphere to take his mind to retrieve it. In another part of the shuttle, Romana, Parsons, and K9 are in a shielded holding cell. Romana is making adjustments on K9 to see if he can pick up any signals, and he cannot. And she says, blast it. And of course, K9, being the obedient dog robot, shoots his laser that bounces
K9
around the room.
I loved him in the original shows that I saw, and even in this one, he was pretty good.
Yes. However, after he blasted the wall, he is now picking up a signal.
Mm-hmm.
There is a new voice in the sphere. The Doctor's. Coincidentally, when Romana says that she wishes she could get out of there, the cube reappears and takes her. And I kept laughing because Parsons is trying to wish himself out of the holding cell, but it doesn't work.
Exactly. Mm-hmm.
And when it doesn't work, he says, blast. And then he stops K9 before he's shot again. So Skagra is now back in his space pimp outfit, and he takes Romana to the TARDIS. We check back on the Doctor laying on the floor of the shuttle, and he comes back to consciousness and talks to Skagra's ship's computer. Because the computer believes that the Doctor should be dead, therefore he is dead, and someone who is dead cannot be a threat, so he can follow the Doctor's orders because he can't be a threat to Skagra because he is dead.
Yes, it's funny how back in those days it was easy to confuse a computer.
Yes.
Oh, gosh.
So the computer told him where his friends were. However, because the Doctor is dead, it also shut down life support.
Didn't need any life support. He's already dead.
Exactly. Romana and Skagra take the TARDIS to the command ship, and Skagra explains his plan to Romana. He also showed her the monsters he created, the Krargs. He also discovers time runs backwards over the book, and it is a key. Turning the pages in the time field of the TARDIS is the control, and turning to the last page takes them to Shada. Shada is the prison that Sally Avon is being held in, and he wants Sally Avon.
Right. And we're all led to believe at one point or another that Shada is the name of the book. But it's not. It's the name of the prison.
I have always known that Shada was the name of the prison, so if they ever alluded it to being the book, I never caught that. Because I've always known that Shada was the name of the prison.
Well, it's helpful information if you knew it ahead of time.
Yes. So, yeah, at no point of watching this did I think Shada was the name of the book. Because the name of the book was The Worshipful and Ancient Laws of Gallifrey.
Right. Exactly.
So Parsons and K9 are set free, and they find the Doctor unconscious. But because they are alive, life support was restored when Parsons walked in. The Doctor convinces the ship to continue to follow his orders and takes the ship to the last place Skagra has been. The trip will take 3 months. He has to rewire the ship and turn it into a TARDIS. Didn't realize it was that easy.
No
additional parts are necessary.
No. At least in the ability to travel the universe, I suppose, in that respect.
Right.
Yeah, that was an interesting thing, because if you think about it, I still haven't quite figured out, even though I've watched the story now a couple times, how does Skagra know that the book is held by Dr. Chronotis? They never really make that clear.
No.
So how he knows to go look for him is one question. Another is that when they're talking about this conversion of the ship that the Doctor does,
right.
The ship tells him that the trip that Skagra had recently made took months or, a great length of time.
Yes.
So he left the think tank, as we'll find out later, many months earlier on his way to where the ship currently is.
Yes.
So when he got the book back to get to Shada, if he had been on his ship, his own ship, it probably would have taken him years to get there.
Right. Yes.
But I don't know how he knows about the key is in the book or the book is the key. Anyway.
He's brilliant.
The amount of information that he knows just isn't quite clear to me.
No, he does have a lot of information that you don't know how he has. However, he has it.
Right.
Yes. So Claire has been waiting and snooping in the professor's library. She discovers a control panel and, of course, starts pushing buttons. The library disappears. We learn it has disappeared when the porter at the college comes to check on the professor, opens the door, and just sees a blue haze. Claire falls asleep. When she wakes, the professor is there. He thanks her and tells her how he rescued this ancient TARDIS from a scrap heap. Without it and her fiddling with the controls, he would still be dead. He also told her that the book was the key to the Time Lord prison, Shada. So now why all of a sudden that dawned on him, I don't know.
Well, again, I mean, we don't want to reveal what happens in the last page, but
No.
we do find out why he knows later.
Correct. Was he just pretending he didn't know earlier?
Well, yeah, it's weird because what we're dealing with is an intentional memory block that's created by the book for the Time Lords. And since he's a Time Lord, I guess in that respect, he has the same memory block occasionally.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the only thing I could think of.
So the Doctor and Parsons arrive back on the command ship. And here they have a funny conversation with a very obvious punchline. And again, I'm just going to play the clip.
You cannot travel faster than light, Einstein.
Do you understand Einstein?
Yes.
What? And quantum theory?
Yes.
What? And Planck?
Yes.
What? And Newton?
Yes.
What? And Schoenberg?
Of course.
You've got a lot to unlearn.
So they come across the victims of Skagra's brain drain. And again, these poor people have been wandering for 3 months on this ship.
Yeah, that is something's wrong here.
Yeah.
I mean, it's funny because the video, I keep saying video, the film, when you see these characters in the film, their fingernails are about, 6 inches long and that kind of thing. Not something that would happen in 3 months. It's more like multiple years.
Yeah.
So there's a little discontinuity again about the time frame.
Right.
Of how long Skagra's been attempting to find this information. And maybe that's the key, because maybe there's 30, 40, 50 years between the time Skagra leaves the think tank and finally figures out where the book is. I don't know.
True. We only know that it's 3 months is the minimum time, but he could have been searching other places for longer than that.
Right.
So the Doctor hooks Parsons up to the circular seats called the think tank, and he connects him to one of the victims to get his mind. The victim tells the Doctor of Skagra's plan to steal minds and the need for one more great mind, Sally Avon's. They are set upon by a Krarg, and the Doctor saves himself by luring the Krarg to the mindless think tank members. So he just sacrificed all these guys to the monster.
Mm-hmm.
They leave the command ship on the shuttle just before the command ship explodes, and he convinces the shuttle to take them to Skagra's home. Back at the professor's, we learn they are stuck between 2 times. Some pieces of his TARDIS have broken and need to be repaired. Repairs are difficult, if not impossible, for one person. Claire asks about Sally Avon. He tells her that he was a criminal whose exploits have been wildly exaggerated. The The professor tells Claire he is going to do something only once, and she cannot tell anybody. He then transfers his knowledge to her, and together they attempt repairs. The Doctor and Parsons meet up with Romana and Skagra. The Doctor accuses Skagra of wanting to take over the universe. He wants to merge every mind in the universe into one single godlike entity. He wants to become the universe. Mm-hmm. The Doctor and Parsons with K9 run out of the room, leaving Romana. They run into a dead end and see a door they had not seen before. They decide to go through it, and they are now in the professor's library. In this, they were surprised to be there. In the webcast, they read a nameplate on the door and knew where they were going.
Right.
Which version do you like better?
Right. Well, I liked the nameplate. I thought it was kind of fun, you know. But Chris has only been there once, I think. The Doctor's been there a lot of times, so he could have even recognized the door, I suppose. But if the TARDIS comes into the other TARDIS, so maybe he never used the door before. I don't know. That's a good question.
Well, does the room move, or is it just the door?
Oh.
You know what I mean? Because
yeah.
Because the TARDIS is infinitely small and infinitely big.
Right.
So you just need the portal to get into it.
Yeah, it would be handy if it was just the door, that moved.
Yeah.
In relative.
Yes. Well, like in Dirk Gently.
Right.
It's the door that moves.
Right.
The professor explains that Skagra has everything he needs to get to Shada. The Doctor explains the difference between Skagra and Salyaven is that Skagra can only take minds out of people. Salyaven can put minds into people. Boom, boom, boom. You mean like he did with Claire?
Yes, like he did with Claire. Now we begin to understand the little twists.
Yes. They follow Skagra to Shada. And then at this point, Salyaven's going to Shada to get Salyaven's mind, which he already has. Right?
Yeah, he does. But yeah.
He doesn't know it, but you would imagine that once you have the giant mind that you're looking for, you would know what was in your mind closet or whatever.
Well, right. Except, in a way, I guess the Doctor tries to explain that away. When his mind is taken, he says that he has the capacity to, close off parts of his brain or whatever, and segment his brain. So the Salyaven part of the professor's brain is obviously closed off at some level.
Okay, yeah.
So maybe he didn't share that. I don't know. I guess that would be the only logical thing we'd have to assume.
Yeah, the Doctor does talk about how he protected himself against having his whole mind stolen by pretending he was stupid and only giving him a part of the mind. So I am sure that the great criminal Salyaven could have done the same thing.
Exactly. And he's been hiding for hundreds of years from himself as well as everybody else, so it's got to be buried in there somewhere.
Right. So Skagra and Romana get to Shada, and they look up the cell where they are holding Salyaven. It is Chamber T, Cabinet 9. But before he releases Salyaven, he wants to release a few others. The Doctor and K9 follow, leaving Claire and Parsons behind. Parsons is upset because he feels patronized, and even though he does not know what all their equipment does, Claire admits that she knows. Mm-hmm. And
or did know.
In the webcast, she says, at least for a few minutes.
Right.
Implying she does not remember anymore.
Mm-hmm,
she does not admit that she does not know. It makes it sound like she still knows.
Right.
In the original. So
right.
That's one of those things that they said, we're going to clarify this, and we're not going to have a human being walking around with a Time Lord's mind. Right. It's going to fade.
Right. Yeah, those are some of the aspects of the Big Finish production that I liked, because there's a lot of little clarifications like that.
Skagra gets to Salyaven's cabinet and opens it, and it is empty. The professor is revealed to be Saliaven. Skagra tried to use the sphere on the professor, and the doctor tells K9 to shoot the sphere. It breaks apart and forms many spheres, and they attach to the previously released prisoners. In the webcast, K9 does not shoot the sphere, and it is revealed that he is going to put the minds into the Krargs. So there's another pretty big difference there.
Right. But there again, that's probably one of the weaker parts of the story in the Big Finish story, putting the minds into the Krargs.
Rather than the other prisoners. I like the other prisoners.
Right.
The doctor is worried because all of the minds Skagra has taken are in the melting pot, including Skagra's and Saliaven's. Romana reminds the doctor that his is in there too. And the doctor gives her a medal for imparting that information. So there was this weird big ceremony where he pins a medal on her, and they totally cut that part out of the webcast.
They did.
And
they did.
It was unnecessary but hysterical. I don't know how else to say it.
Yes, it was funny. I liked it.
So Skagra and his army go back to the carrier ship with plans to convert the universe. The doctor and the crew go after him. They catch them in a force field and connect to it with a light bridge. The doctor is crossing over. Again, remind you of anything?
Yes, 100%.
There is a malfunction and the bridge breaks. K9 tries to make repairs. Romana and Claire could not hold the controls anymore. The doctor falls into his workshop in the TARDIS. In Big Finish animation, they made it very clear he fell into his workshop on the TARDIS. In the original version that we just watched, he falls into something that has a lot of shelves and gadgets, but you don't know where he is.
Right. It looks like he's in the back of a toy store. It's just weird.
So the doctor in his workshop is scavenging parts. After Skagra leaves, the doctor spies on Skagra. He then goes out and confronts him. The doctor puts on a helmet he built and controls all the prisoners. That is quite a helmet that he built for himself.
Tinfoil hat.
Tinfoil hat. K9 and Romana take care of the Krargs. Skagra tries to escape and is collected by the cube. Skagra is put in the holding cell and discovers his ship has switched sides and is now with the doctor.
Mm-hmm.
The porter from the college reported that the professor's room was stolen. He and a police officer check on it, and all is well. The group is in the library, and the doctor is reading a story.
Right.
The police officer notices the police box and asks about it. The doctor says it is his and leaves in it, causing the police officer to want to take in everybody for questioning. That was a very situation and reaction didn't match what I would have expected would have happened.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And then here was a nice little touch at the end.
Yes, my favorite part of this particular production.
This is a part that should have been animated, but it was live action.
Which I really appreciated.
From off camera, Romana asks about Skagra and then says she can't believe that the professor was Saliaven because he is such a nice old man. The doctor, 37 years older than when he filmed the original part, says this.
I expected sometime in the future, in about 200 years' time, someone will meet me and say, "Is that really the doctor? He seemed such a nice old man."
This is a part that I loved. I absolutely love this part. But all of the animation stuff and all of the voices, for the most part, as I mentioned, are pretty seamless.
Mm-hmm.
The doctor's voice doesn't change all that much.
Mm-hmm.
But Romana, who was 29 when she filmed the original and 66 when she was doing the new animation parts, there is a definite change in her voice.
Right. But I just love that scene where he's tucked himself up underneath the TARDIS's engine, and he's talking to Romana, and then out pops the Tom Baker, the original Doctor, with his white hair and everything. That was well done. That was really well done.
So they cut to this scene, and all you see are the Doctor's legs sticking out, and you do not know that it's not the original show.
And they could have just left it that way,
But they wanted the surprise to have the original guy saying his line about being a nice old man.
Oh, gosh. Loved it. Loved that part. That was my favorite part of that particular show. But we finally reached the end of the show. So let me just say that from the very beginning, I was confused.
Okay.
And I probably could have benefited by watching it 2 or 3 times. But as you go along the story, you have no idea what's going on. At least I didn't have any idea what was going on when you watch the piece together one. You didn't feel that way, or only after the second viewing that you felt that way?
I did not. The first time I watched it, it's a little bit different, and I wasn't paying super close attention. But when I watched it the second time to take all of my notes, I really enjoyed it, which is going to bring a question.
Right.
And I think we have different answers on this, which is fine. And it's actually kind of rare that we feel differently about things, but this is a Doctor Who, not a Douglas Adams thing. The big question that is always asked about Shada is this revered because it was missing for so long? Or is it revered because it's actually good?
Yeah, that's a good question.
I'm saying it's both, but I enjoyed this Doctor Who story about as much as I have enjoyed any of the original First Doctor's stories.
Right. Well, it does have similar elements. It's got an evil, mastermind and wants to take over the universe. That's pretty typical of a Doctor Who story. But again, I just trying to figure out why I felt the way I did, because I did feel as if it was disjointed. I couldn't figure out what was going on, why the things were connected.
Well, it's a good thing you bought the DVD.
Yes, absolutely.
You can watch it again.
Right. And my series was to watch the original show that we were intending to watch, take my notes. And then I went on from there and I watched the animated series. And when I was watching the animated series, like we've pointed out here, it immediately started answering questions that I had about what was going on. Why was the Doctor going to see the professor, what was their relationship, that kind of thing. And I already knew the plot, so I had that benefit of forethought, so I could appreciate it more, I guess. But the silliness of it was what kind of bothered me, the white outfit that Shauger's wearing. I guess I needed to take in context the time that it was created. You mean he did look like he was just out of the disco?
Yes, he did. Absolutely. It's hard to watch this without being a fan of it. Like, if you didn't see a lot of Doctor Who back in the 70s and the 80s, where you fell in love with Doctor Who and the corniness and the outlandishness of the costumes and the story and the British humor, if this didn't exist, if all of Doctor Who didn't exist, and you took what some would say arguably is the best Doctor Who stuff, which is the Tom Baker era, if you took the first season of the Tom Baker era of Doctor Who, had it never existed, and tried to air it today, it would get canceled mid-season, easily. There's no way that a show like that would succeed as it is today. So when you're watching it, you can't watch it under today's lens. You've got to think back to when it was originally done.
Right.
And it gets to be difficult. That's why I have trouble with old movies sometimes, because I have trouble going back to that time And understanding.
Right. And exactly. I mean, you point out something significant, I think. And that is that when you were talking about it earlier, we were talking about the fact that this particular production is just after they started doing color TV. I mean, it's not very far before they were shooting everything prior to this in black and white. In addition, it's still in the phases where radio and radio series was still something that people enjoyed. So
yes,
the serialization of the radio story, the cliffhanger approach that the radio stories always used, was a key element, like you say, to the Doctor Who franchise.
Right.
So I think I could have appreciated this story more if they had broken it up into 6 little sections. And I can see, now that we've talked about it, oh yeah, well, this is exactly where they would have set up the cliffhanger. You know, this is the point here, and this is the point there, and this is the point there. And because you have that kind of a transition, I would be able to appreciate it more. In watching it straight through, I found that jarring rather than expected. You know what I mean? The transitions, yeah.
It removes any of the perceived danger.
Mm-hmm.
In the cliffhanger ending, before you get to the next week's episode, there's the, oh no, the Doctor's in trouble. And you wait a week to find out what happens. Where in this, it's like, oh no, the Doctor's in, oh no, he's not. He's not in trouble. Like, you don't even get to say trouble before the problem is solved.
Right. And the other thing is, I guess we don't have the benefit of having seen consistent performances by the actor, because the other piece of that production that made it clearly obvious to me is that when I watched Doctor Who back in the day, even if we didn't know what was going on because we're just an observer to these actions, the Doctor did.
Yes.
He always had that exuded confidence that said, oh, I know what's going on, just because you guys don't know.
Right.
You know, you'll get there eventually, because, you know, I'll tell you when I get to my own sweet time.
Right.
But you had the confidence that the Doctor knew what was happening. When I was watching that, I had a different feeling. And I think it was only because of the inconsistencies and the way they had to go about putting it together. So from that perspective, being a fan of the show helps, because you add that feeling into it when you're watching it, because you anticipate that, oh, well, we're not being let in on the secret until the Doctor's ready to tell us.
Right. I guess I never thought about it that way when I was watching this, but thinking back on it, there is an awful lot of stuff going on that the Doctor has no idea what's happening.
Yeah. And that was the puzzling part. But it makes sense, because the book is designed or specifically created to help them forget.
Right.
So that aspect of it, you should be able to take in. So in terms of story, in terms of plot twisty things, that's a unique feature to this story, which makes this story, like you say, a unique type of story for the Doctor Who franchise, which makes it better. But I do have a question for you about Shada.
Okay.
I know you're not a Time Lord. At least I assume you're not. You know, you could be 300 years old. How do I know? But Shada frightens me. The fact that they decided to cryonically freeze their greatest criminal minds in one place.
That's not unique.
I know. I wouldn't say it's unique, you know, but I gotta say, I mean, when you think about the potential there of, you know, some kind of a failure and all these wonderfully criminal people all defrost at the same time.
Yep.
Aren't you going to have a heck of a time trying to control the universe at that point? Especially if you've forgotten that it exists.
Yes. Well, you can then have a whole moral argument of what's more humane. You know, do we exterminate these people like the Daleks would exterminate them? Is freezing them cryogenically, perpetually, for eternity a better thing?
Right. Well, it seems cruel to me. That's what I kept thinking. I'm watching this, and in the animated series, they go way out there. You know, they show this vast fields of criminals. You know, they don't show just 4 or 5 little cubicles or whatever it is that they have in the recorded show. But there I'm thinking to myself, man, there's hundreds of these criminals there. They haven't been here for what appears to be hundreds and hundreds of years.
Right.
So how did they manage to get all their criminals at the same time? Locked away hundreds of years ago, and they haven't had any crime since then?
Well, yeah.
That was another thought I had.
Saliavin would have been the last one to go in because he made everybody forget when he escaped.
Right.
Nobody would go in after that. Who knows when he was imprisoned, because people could have been imprisoned after that. But his escape made him make everybody forget.
Right, because he went and then he stole the book to keep the secret of the prison from everyone else. I mean, that's why he had the book. He was trying to protect himself and protect, the knowledge of who he was. Anyway, so from that perspective, it is an interesting story. It's got the circular loops that we all like in most of these stories. I also have to say, we were talking about the creatures that he created.
Right.
In the animated version, he goes through the last few scenes and he places, quote unquote, fragments of the universal mind into the creatures and Chris. Okay.
Yes.
And the only thing that they're able to do is say, universal mind, universal mind. And they don't seem to have any further intellect. I mean, if they have dozens of brilliant brains all creating this incredible thought potential, they should be able to say something other than universal mind, and or they should be questioning what the hell they're doing, That part I didn't quite get,
Right, because the concept of universal mind, I guess, could be interpreted multiple ways.
Mm-hmm.
One, there's the universal mind by a single being who is able to then control all the drones.
Mm-hmm.
Or all the drones share one mind and work as a collective, which would be more frightening than a single person moving things around. So
Right.
I think in the animated version, they must have had Skagra has the mind.
Right.
And all of the pieces are just connecting him to the monsters who he's going to move around. But if they can't think independently, then they're worthless.
Right, exactly. And yeah, that's exactly what they do. And again, I know it was different, but the animated version, you see the doctor in his goofy looking hat and he has a conversation with Skagra, and Skagra is definitely fragmented at that point, trying to control the activities of the creatures that supposedly have this universal mind, and therefore he's incapable of action.
Right.
I like that. I mean, that is the obvious result of trying to control too many individual pieces.
Right.
That part of the story was really good, but where they thought they were going with this universal mind, or where Skagra thought he would be, it implied that he would be the super intelligent individual, but it didn't actually seem to work out that way.
No, it did not.
Yeah, it keeps reminding me of that, the platypus is an elephant designed by committee. It's the concept that too much intelligence prevents you from thinking logically.
Right.
So it certainly was an experience that I really enjoyed. I have to say that.
Yes, I am very happy that we watched this, and I'm glad I liked it as much as I did.
Right.
A lot of times I go in trying to like something and it disappoints me, but this I wanted to like and I did.
Right. We definitely saw fragments of Douglas Adams in the story.
I think that's what tickled me the most, is seeing all those little bits that I recognized that were truly from him.
Mm-hmm. Yep. I really enjoyed it.
When I was watching this, as soon as it came on and we first meet Professor Chronotis and his actions and what he was saying and how he was acting was, I identical
Right.
to the Professor Chronotis in my mind from Dirk Gently's Holistic Detective Agency.
Mm-hmm.
And when I was reading the Dirk Gently stories, I was accepting the fact that there was this guy and that he had this time machine and that he could do all of this stuff and he lived for so long, but he was the only one. And there was never any type of, this is where he came from, or this is who he is, or why he is.
Right, right.
But I'm sure it was impossible for him to do it. But if he could have somehow slipped in under the BBC's knowledge the word Time Lord, all of that would have made so much more sense.
It would. And that's funny, you know, I agree with you, because I think when we had a discussion about Dirk Gently and we were talking about that fact, we talked specifically about the fact that we didn't understand why Chronotis was still alive. If he was a regular human being, even if he had a time machine, nobody's lifespan is hundreds of years. He didn't have any supernatural creation ability that we were aware of or that they made clear. So you are correct. That would have been a beautiful touch to add to the story to help us understand why he would have lived so long.
Right. So it does make perfect sense, though, knowing that he loved that character in this and wanted to put him in one of his own works.
Right.
But he just put him in. He really couldn't incorporate him.
Right.
He just cut him out and stuck him in.
Yeah, exactly. And the only other thing I was thinking about was the special features on the DVD.
Okay.
I don't usually watch those. You know, that's kind of interesting that I have hundreds of them and rarely have watched special features. But in this particular case, I thought it was fascinating because the DVD, the second DVD, has a whole bunch of information about the strikes that were going on.
Yes.
And they talk about the political conditions of the time. Fascinating to look back at that, having lived through it. And both of us have lived through that time. But I didn't realize how, from a British perspective, what was going on and how it was affecting their everyday lives. I mean, there were literally times, I guess, where they would turn on the television and there would be nothing on TV.
Right.
Because of the strike. The TV would have one channel playing some rerun and everything else would be, like a test pattern.
Right.
And to me, that was absolutely fascinating. A different glimpse of a reality that I wasn't aware of.
What I wasn't aware of is how frequently they had strikes over there. It seemed all the time. They made it sound like the unions were just looking for any reason to strike. Yeah. Somebody said something the wrong way, we're going to strike. So they had strikes all the time.
Right. Oh, and it was fascinating because they were talking, well, obviously we both watched the thing, but there was a section that they were talking about the production process that they were going through, having to go through, where there was a ladder left on one of the sound stages. Yes. And because the guy that moves the ladder was on strike, they couldn't move the ladder. So they had to shoot around it and add it to the story. I mean, well, that kind of deep dive was fascinating. It
also made it sound like there was a strike because one actress fixed her own hair that was hanging in her eyes instead of having the hair person come in and do it.
Oh, gosh.
Wow.
And I also found the other special features kind of interesting. There's one that's kind of like a documentary of the streets and location scenes where they were in the area and the surrounding buildings and towns. I thought that was fascinating.
Yes. But then there were a couple in studio.
Oh, right.
I didn't watch those. Those were boring. Did you watch all those?
Well, I did, but they weren't very long, so it was easy to watch. One thing was fascinating is they showed in-studio shot of the cast walking into the invisible ship. And that was kind of interesting. You know, they didn't have a green screen, but they used a blue screen, and they showed the characters walking up this, ledge and into the ship.
Right.
And that kind of was interesting.
Well, watching it on the film, there was no secret as to how that was done. Do you know it was?
No. no, that was easy to figure out. Oh my gosh.
My favorite shot though was K9 going up the ramp, and they were watching. It was like he was flying from the show, not the documentary, but in the actual show when K9 was going up the ramp. Everybody else, they showed a long shot from the side, but for him, they sort of did a down angle from the ship as he's going up. It was kind of funny.
Right. Yep. They did show that shot in the documentary part of it, but you're right, it's a little strange there. But I tell you, it was a fascinating show to watch, fascinating special features. And if anyone happens to want to buy a copy of the DVD, I just happen to have one here.
What's your eBay handle?
Oh, gosh. Because now I have to add this to my collection.
Put in your Douglas Adams collection.
Yeah, that's where it's going. That's where it's going. But now that we've reached the end of this production, what's next, Jeff?
I know what's next, but I also do not know what's next. Because I know what I want to do.
Okay.
But I don't know how it will happen.
All right.
So, it's not going to be about any one certain program. It's going to be kind of all-encompassing.
All right.
And kind of timely.
Good.
Because there has been the recent announcement of Firefly Season 2 coming out as an animated series.
Yes. How excited are we of that?
I am not excited at all, actually. And we can talk about that next week, and I can explain why I'm not excited. But what I want to talk about is reboots and spin-offs and the vast numbers of them, and are they necessary, or could they be their own unique property not attached to existing properties? Because there's a lot that I feel that could be their own thing, only it's attached for some reason. Well, here, we just watched Doctor Who Shada, and we've seen Dirk Gently.
Right.
Dirk Gently's Holistic Detective Agency definitely has a character taken right from a Doctor Who episode.
Right.
Why can't Dirk Gently been in the Doctor Who universe? It's modern day Earth. It's in England. That's where all of Doctor Who happens. But it wasn't. It's its own unique property. And then it had its own problems, if you want to say that, with spin-offs and continuations after Douglas has passed.
Right.
So we're going to try and take this monumental subject of spin-offs and reboots and kind of get our feelings together about, are they necessary? And if they're necessary, do they expect us to watch all of them and all of that?
Right. The relationship between fandom and franchise, right?
Yes. So when we were first discussing this, I didn't think that this was a topic that could be discussed by two people. I thought we needed more people. And I was out to breakfast with a friend of mine, Tom, and I had brought up something about the podcast.
And he said, what podcast?
No, he said, are you still doing that? So thank you, Tom, for being a loyal listener. And then he kind of complained that I'd never asked him to be on the podcast. So I said, funny, you should mention it because we want to do this episode and we're thinking we need more than two voices. And I explained the concept that we originally talked about, which was a would you rather. Would you rather have all of these spin-offs and reboots, or would you rather have nothing new from the properties you enjoy? And his answer was, Well, the question answers itself because it's a definitive, I'm going to watch it.
Right.
Like, there's not a, I'm going to boycott anything that's put out new from a property that I like.
Mm-hmm.
So then I decided, well, since there isn't a discussion of what the answer is because it's a definitive, yes, we're going to watch it, then we can just approach it a little bit differently and just talk about some of our feelings of the pros and cons. At least that's my idea and my hope.
Yeah, no. I think that's fantastic. I think there's a lot of opportunity here for us to discuss the idea and the concepts that are related to the franchises that we enjoy and whether or not they have extra potential.
Yes. So the scary part for me is I have to do a different type of research than I've been doing for everything else.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Instead of just looking at one thing, I have to look at many things. And I've got a couple of ideas.
Great.
And this may spin off into multiple episodes and we'll do a reboot. And
yeah, it has that potential, I think.
All right. Well, now that we've discussed what we are doing next time, I think it's time for me to say that this is the end.
I have something else in my Douglas Adams collection that I can't quite figure out. And I don't have any idea how many years ago or how I got it. But I think I've even shown it to you at one point. I have a piece of wood that's 3/4 of an inch thick, about 4 inches long, and I think it's about 2.5 inches high.
Okay.
And it's got the number 42 on the front of the piece of wood.
And that's it. It's just it's like a sign that says 42.
Yeah, that's it. I have no idea where it came from, who gave it to me. Somebody gave it to me.
Is it burned in or is it carved in?
No, it looks like it's written in with a magic marker.
Did you make it?
It doesn't look like my handwriting. So,
would one of your nieces or something who knew you liked hitchhikers create it, write 42 on a piece of wood and say, here?
That would be my guess. That would be my guess.
They didn't sign it.
No, it's not signed. So that's the puzzle. But it's sitting on my shelf because I'm very proud of it.
Yes. It's not something you would have seen in a craft show and said, oh, I've got to have that.
No, I would have more likely say, what the f*** is that thing?
Thank you for listening to this. A new episode is released on the first Thursday of every month. Visit our website at digitalwatchesareaprettyneatidea.buzzsprout.com. While there, you can find links to all of my Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy inspired t-shirt designs. You can contact us via email at digitalwatchespodcast@gmail.com. You can find us on YouTube and Facebook at Digital Watches Are a Pretty Neat Idea. You can message us on Twitter, or should I say X, at Watches Idea, and our Instagram is Watches Idea Podcast.
This has been a Froods for Thought production, darling. This has been a Froods for Thought production, darling. This has been a Froods for Thought production, darling. This has been a Froods for Thought production, darling. This has been a Froods for Thought production, darling.